Boruto Chapter 18. Only babble in your sleep and babbled in the sleep he did. Let's go over this chapter and see what it had to offer. Chapter opens up with Amato and Kawaki confrontation, with Kawaki demanding that Amato rescinds his limiters and ups his offensive power, only to be sent to sleep for the third time in recent chapters. Amato used shutdown code to do so, which Sumire witnessed up close. Amato went 2 for 2, having those who threatened him laid down shortly after. Sumire, hearing the shutdown code and witnessing this exchange, might play a role in the future. She's being set up for something, and her playing a role in the future when it comes to Kawaki would fit her well, especially as she's been assigned to spy on Amato and likely disagrees with his methods. The chapter shifts to Sand Village with Ryu being guided away from Matsuri by Mitsuki and Sarada, greeted by Araya and Yodo, with Yodo unable to mask her feelings as she should. Ryu wastes no time and activates his ability, spreading around the iron sand, supposedly to detect some signs of Boruto. How true that is unknown, but he can sense some things with it, as he senses Yodo bloodlust even more. To divert attention, Mitsuki shifts the attention to Boruto and why Shinju are after him. Ryu doesn't answer directly, just mentions the soul thorn bulbs, which, just like the use of iron sand, is part of his play. Sarada and Mitsuki grab the bait and ask Ryu to try and get Boruto out using soul thorn bulb as bait. To surprise of everyone, he does. He sends it flying from himself into the open. It's unclear if this is his actual soul thorn bulb or just an imitation created by iron sand. Well, the distinction doesn't matter with what he planned to do, as he turns directly to the audience, breaking the fourth wall and asking us to see if they'll bite. And bite they did. As predicted, Yodo's impulsiveness is a liability for this mission, and she jumps directly for it, just like Ryu predicted, marking the start of the conflict. The iron sand Ryu spread around made it possible for him to control those he coated with it, and he used Sarada as a puppet to go against Yodo. This entire sequence shows that Shinju are not to be underestimated. They might be young, but they certainly aren't dumb, and while it might have seemed like Shinobi had an upper hand in scheming, this was rapidly turned upside down. Ryu perfectly laid up his trap and prepared it right in front of their nose, making all of this more interesting with a few snark comments. I don't know about you, but I find the Shinju unintentionally hilarious, with Hidari and Ryu leading the stand-up. Anyhow, just before Sarada sends Yodo to the Pure Lands, Araya dispelled Ryu's technique using leadstone sand sealing blade. If my prediction is correct, his technique is named after lodestone, a mineral with magnetic properties, which makes him a perfect counter to Ryu, as magnets are the kryptonite of iron. His ability now makes him a prime target for Ryu, and the one he should be taken out first. As he said, it's not fair. This, combined with Yodo's recklessness and impulsiveness, also makes it likely to be the first major death in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, which is past due. While most of the squad is dealing with Ryu, Konohamaru is fumbling yet another baddie. Matsuri is tweaking out and asks Konohamaru if it's okay if she calls him Konohamaru-chan, which makes him think of Moegi and blows it all up. He asks her not to call him that, and somehow Matsuri pick up on that and realizes he's talking about Moegi. When she does, her demeanor completely changes. How well Ikamoto drew her facial expression cannot be overstated. In a moment, she goes from blushing and lost for words to her face filled with jealousy, going on the offense, ready to perform the praying mantis mating ritual with Konohamaru. Matsuri somehow picking up that Konohamaru was referring to Moegi is quite significant. Hidari didn't know who Sasuke was, and Ryu didn't recognize Shinki's teammate. So Matsuri somehow retained some of Moegi knowledge and memories, or her ability to communicate with trees, if far more reaching and significant. Speaking of trees, the tips of her clothing also seems to resemble tree branches closing in on Konohamaru. Development on both sides was cut right at the start of the conflict that will continue in the next chapter. As I said in my previous chapter review, I believe that at least one of the good guys is dying, that most likely being Araya. We also need to know the full extent of soul thorn bulbs and what happens after Shinju devour their targets. So I still believe Ryu is being defeated, which will lead to Ryu and Gaara making a comeback in the story, significantly impacting further world building and political development, where Konohamaru will be devoured, which will likely lead to Matsuri evolving in some way. However, I'm not certain anymore that the targets Shinju devoured will die, but might end up just like the original targets. Anyhow, while all of this is going down, the most significant development of the chapter is going on in Konoha. Kawaki wakes up from his sleep next to Sumire and Amato, with Amato asking for a civil conversation. He says he will enhance his offensive capabilities as he didn't foresee the emergence of Shinju. Surprisingly enough, I believe him. I think Amato had a contingency plan for the code, likely a stop-down code like for all his cyborgs, but Shinju were unpredicted and out of his control. In fact, Shinju might be the biggest obstacle in his goal, as they're the natural enemy of the Otsutsuki. However, he said he will only increase his offensive capabilities under one condition, if he implants karma into the new vessel he prepared. And we got to see the new Akibi clone, the new fresh vessel. Everything I've done until now, it's all been for this. This is my one and only purpose in life. I believe that too. Amato is by far the most suspicious and interesting character in the series, but his motivations should be true. It's everything else about them that we should question. To his request, Kawaki replies that if his daughter turns out to be an Otsutsuki, he will kill her, with no exception, mimicking their dialogue from chapter 76. In fact, his entire sequence is very reminiscent of chapter 75 and 76, which you all should go and reread. Like in those two chapters, they repeat, word for word, who and how the final villain of Boruto will come to be. Step by step, chapter by chapter, we're getting closer to my theories, most of them about Amato, starting to realize. In the unlikely event Akebi truly happens to resurrect as an Otsutsuki, fine. You can do as you please. Tough, I'll fight you with everything I've got. This is the coldest and grimmest line in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex so far. The likelihood of Akebi resurrecting as an Otsutsuki is exactly 100%. That's how karma works. What's more, her already being an Otsutsuki before her death isn't unlikely either. And when Amato said he'll fight him with everything he has, he means it. So far, every major development in Boruto has happened because of him. Kawaki's escape, Ishiki's death, Kawaki getting back karma, Ada and Demon switching sides, and more. He made all Kara Inners what they are. Every time he appeared helpless, it was just another play of manipulation on his side. He could have shut down code with a shutdown code back then, but didn't so he could play Ida. So now when he says he'll fight, because you better believe he modified himself with Shibai remains also. Kawaki says he'll only implant the vessel with karma only after current enemies are defeated, Shinju, Code, and Boruto. When he says that it's important to note Sumire was present for it, she already knows he killed Boruto, the man he loves once, and she heard him say he'll do it again. So, as I said before, she will play a major role in Kawaki's story, one way or another. Kawaki specifying when he'll revive Akebi also spells the timeline, which shows that Amato and Akebi are the final villains in Boruto. Lastly, Kawaki says that he doesn't care how Amato increases his power. Two things to note here. One, his current regenerative capabilities are above max, so to increase his offense, his defense and regeneration are coming down. His total strength will remain in equilibrium. Second, he says he doesn't care how Amato increases his power even more, with scientific ninja tools or otherwise. Well, Amato certainly can do that, both with scientific ninja tools and Shibai remains. Kawaki is again playing directly into Amato's hands, as using Shibai remains on his is exactly what he wants. This power boost is also the only way I can see Kawaki rivaling Boruto in the opening scene, as even if his offense is increased, Boruto with superior straining should still be a lot stronger. Kawaki getting another Shinjutsu is thus not out of the question either. Kawaki seems to be turning himself into a tool, a weapon, following the morbid path of the shinobis of the paths. But as Boruto would say, the tools are not the issue, it's how you use them. Overall, this was an amazing chapter, and before the next one, make sure to rewatch my Amato theories. Perhaps it will be taken more seriously this time.